people joining. That's nice. Hi. So I'll start introducing us, but I'm sure we'll have more people join over the next few meetings. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll get started probably in a minute's time. And in the meantime, I and the rest of the panelists will sit here looking awkward. All right, we'll get going now. So thanks everyone for joining. In a minute, I will do a very nice intro to our wonderful panel who are all here talking about social and community wellness and doing good business. I'm Sanjay, I work at OnHand. After doing the intro to everyone else, we'll do a quick scene setting, very few slides, because the rest of the session really should be an interactive chat. We'll be covering wellbeing in general, volunteering. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about the hybrid working world we're seeing right now, from work from home to a little bit of going back to the office and what differences that makes. We shall also cover creating purpose in your business, and lastly we'll end with tips and a Q&A section. I'd love everyone to get as involved as possible, so there is a chat function that you should all be able to access, so please do have a go on the chat function. Or open it up fairly early, because we have other members of the OnHand team that will post questions in there. So please do get involved. And we'll also save, or if I'm organised enough, we'll try and save some time at the end. So 10 to 15 minutes at the end, we'll try and save for Q&A. And feel free to submit your questions at any point during the chat. We'll try and pick up on the questions as we go too. So if you do post questions, we'll try and pick those up in the relevant moments, but if we don't, we'll come back to them at the end of the session too. All right, so with that, I will ask the panel to introduce themselves. How about we go in the order that's on the slides? I'm Sanjay.
Hi everyone, I'm Bryony Robertson. I am the head of people at Tillo. We're a leading SaaS tech product working in rewarding, incentives and gifting space.
Hi, morning everyone. My name is Reese Lawson. I work for a company called Softcat, who are roughly around about 2,000 employees, IT infrastructure services provider, 9-10 offices across the UK. Yeah, that's me.
Morning everyone. So I'm Gabs from Nudge. So a little bit about Nudge. We are the world's leading financial wellbeing platforms. We essentially help to inform and empower people to take action on their finances. I'm part of the training community engagement team there. I'm also the mental health first aider at Nudge, and I lead on our wellbeing initiatives.
Morning everyone, I'm Erin Mulligan. I'm people partner with Newcastle Building Society. I guess the name says it all really. So we're a building society in the northeast of England. We've been around for more than 150 years and one of the bigger building societies in the northeast. So I have around 1,200 colleagues, and so still small enough to care passionately and make a big difference to our members and communities, and that's what we're all about. I'm also take a lead on wellbeing activities for the organisation too.
Amazing. Thanks everyone and welcome, and thanks for joining us. So what's really cool about today is I think everyone attending has heard of profit with purpose, tech for good, responsible business. And there's many examples of businesses where, hey, like OnHand, what we do is all about purpose and all about impact. What's really fascinating about the panel today, and I think it's increasingly growing, is purpose beyond profit. And so that's what I'd really like us to delve into. Why is purpose beyond profit important? I think both for the consumer side, but also for our employees, and how does that impact wellbeing? So for some scene setting, I've borrowed some slides from Google, who do things really well, and so hopefully I can forward to those. So I'm starting with a quote. So we're the first generation to know we're destroying the world, and the last that can do anything about it. The way he ends this quote, so this is from the WWF, it's a wake-up call for the world and business leaders alike. It's a pretty strong quote to start us off. They have a load of stats they released recently on a story around what consumers want and what they're searching for, and it's a lot around sustainability and more productive lifestyles. But they ultimately conclude that that means consumers expect brands to do more good. I don't think that's new, that's been around for a while, but what's really interesting is the stat on the right, quite a large increase in people saying that's even more important in the light of the last year's activities. So a number on consumers who expect brand values aligning with their own beliefs being a deciding factor in how they buy. And again, purpose that goes beyond profits becomes a driving, meaningful reason for consumers to buy from organizations. Ultimately, they're concluding, hey, doing good is good for business. It's kind of, everyone attending probably believes that as well. So probably no surprises there. It's wonderful to see the recognition that's getting at this point in time. It just seems to be increasing all the time. So very clearly, I hope, doing good is good for business because of consumers. But it's also massive for employees, and there's some stats here. So this is from a Deloitte survey from 2020. Actually, they did a number of surveys, I think at 3 different points across the lockdown. And what they saw was this unprecedented rise for organizations that met the need for purpose for employees. And they've never seen this before. So they've been doing this survey for the last half a decade. They've never seen this rise in employee loyalty. And they kind of put it down to employers have been really good. They've been really good during the pandemic in addressing the needs employees had of working from home and then caring about it. So that was like the first time they've ever seen it. What they also saw was 75% of all responders were more aware and more sympathetic to the needs of others around them. So that was local community and worldwide. And then 80% want to do more for their communities. There's another stat that's not on here. It's I think it's from Codes Research 2016. It's something like above 60% of millennials won't work for a company unless it demonstrates that they have corporate social responsibility at the core of what they do. So I think very clearly it's important for consumers, but increasingly it's important for employees. Why volunteering? So some of the stats we share, and may be familiar with some of the partners that we have on this call, 70% of employees say volunteering is essential for employee well-being. Again, this is from Deloitte. 70% say they want to do more, but they struggle for simple ways to do it. And then 74% believe that volunteering gives them an improved sense of purpose, but very few actually say their employees support it. So massive stats behind things that we're up to. So with that, I'm going to turn over to us having a conversation about different aspects of wellbeing. So we're going to start with wellbeing initiatives, and then we'll go into volunteering, then talk a bit around creating purpose in your business, and lastly end with tips. But how about I start very broadly by asking the panel, and maybe Erin, I'll start with you. What other initiatives does your company do or has done in the last 12 months to help with wellbeing in general?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sanjay. Really interesting statistics there, mind, aren't they? I think it's close to heart, but I think seeing that data really brings to life, doesn't it, the importance of it as well. So yeah, at the Society, look, we're really passionate about taking a colleague-led approach to wellbeing. So we do that really by seeking really specific wellbeing feedback from colleagues around what's important to them and what do they need in their lives, and how can we play a really key role in helping them prioritise their wellbeing. So it's a number of ways we do that, and we do that through our managers seeking feedback, our monthly feedback through what we call our colleague voice survey, our engagement survey, and also our network of health and wellbeing advocates. So we use all of these ways to connect with colleagues and say, well, what can we be doing? And from that, we create at least 4 tailored wellbeing campaigns each year. I say at least. Last year we did significantly more because it was a year that you really needed to step up in wellbeing, I think. Alongside that, we have a dedicated wellbeing hub. So we've lots of content on there around a range of different wellbeing topics. And we look to incentivise colleagues to connect about all things wellbeing. So there's ways you can interact, share tips, share what's going on. And that hub is such a positive and engaging place to be. And that being said, you know, there's often tricky topics being discussed by colleagues, but just in such a supportive and kind way with one another. And what's lovely for us is it creates a space where colleagues who wouldn't necessarily normally cross paths can connect with each other and share that, and you see that value that adds that level of connection, particularly as we're in such a remote working environment, or many of our colleagues are. Goes without saying, but mental health has obviously is really important to us, and particularly over the last year. So, you know, in addition to having mental health first aiders and our EAP service, we look to really regularly champion mental health initiatives, and we've made sure we've had all of our managers go through several rounds of mental health training and conversations around mental health topics, and we've looked wherever possible to build a focus on well-being through everything we touch on day to day, so through our performance framework, through our coaching framework, and other ways that we interact with our people. And so you'll see it as a regular feature in communications at all levels of the organisation, and we seek the feedback on how that's going through our colleague voice survey. For us, we really strongly believe that if our colleagues know that we think that their health needs to be a priority, they're going to feel more connected and more loyal to us, and we've certainly seen the benefit of that over the last year. So, you know, in addition to actively promoting volunteering through OnHand, we've looked to adopt wellbeing principles too. So we have principles around email and meeting etiquette, particularly in the remote working environment, and also protected time where people can have meeting-free zones as well. And we look to schedule, you know, fun and engaging wellbeing activities in that time too. So we've had things like cookery and exercise classes, mindfulness workshops, and lots more of examples. And the final thing that we've recently launched, but has been a really big hit in the organisation, is our dedicated parent and carer wellbeing network, because we recognise for those caring for others, regardless of that relationship, it hasn't been the easiest time. So we wanted to create a network where people could come together, give each other reassurance and support, and know that the organisation supports some of the challenges that they have.
Amazing, thank you, Erin. Sounds like there's loads of things going on at Newcastle Building Society there. I want to join. I wonder if I can bring in some of our fast-growing startups. So, Bryony, I wonder if you and Gabby might want to join in with the types of initiatives you've got up to for wellbeing in the last year, specifically.
Yeah, it's interesting because although obviously we're at a different cycle, you know, we did grow from 21 to sort of coming up to 60 people in the pandemic. So in the last 10 months, that growth has been massive. But actually, a lot of the themes are the same. We have put together a mental health ambassadors group. We saw it. We knew that it was going to be something that was coming up. So we've got a team of people that are focusing on it and sending out, you know, surveys and, you know, stress tests and understanding what people are saying. But I think it was the big to the small. You know, not everyone's well-being is impacted in the same way. Not everyone's mental health is the same. So it was having just a range of options. We've introduced private healthcare for all our employees, which we're able to do because we're that much smaller, we can contain that. We chose one that has a really good focus on well-being. It's got lots of incentives for looking after your well-being. You get points and things and rewarded. But it's also just doing a Friday catch-up, you know, inviting the team to jump onto Zoom at Friday afternoon and have a drink together. You know, just looking at ranges and just not assuming one path's going to suit everyone. Some people are intimidated by some things. They don't want to jump on that call with me on a Friday afternoon. Some people do prefer sort of more introverted, sort of the healthcare where they can go about it at their own pace. So I think, you know, we've got that luxury of being 60 people. We're able to know what sort of works for them, and we can sort of talk to them about it, ask them, and let the employees take the lead. But we have just signed up. So we've got our entire management team, 11 of us, going on mental health first aid training to make sure that we're giving people the skills to notice it. And then we can use that information to, you know, push forward our well-being over the next 12 months and onwards.
Yeah, I think to sort of reiterate both what Erin and Brian had said, the same as Erin, we've got a wellbeing hive, which has just been such a positive, safe space for people to support one another, share what we've been up to. And like you said, Erin, you know, people that didn't necessarily normally cross paths at work all of a sudden have created these lovely relationships with one another. Like, you know, being a quickly scaling business, we've seen people joining the company who have never actually met before. So it's been nice to have this sort of space where people can get to know one another. One of the biggest and probably most successful things at Nudge we've implemented recently is our Wellbeing Hour. So every week, it was initially Wednesdays at 11, but we found that keeping it too static allowed people not to be able to take it. So now we've just said, you know what, 1 hour a week, take that as your wellbeing hour, whatever you want to do, whether you want to have a whip round and tidy up, whether you want to just go and have a little walk, go to the gym, whatever it is that enhances your wellbeing, you get that 1 hour back. And everyone's aware that when we change our status on Slack, or we're putting that time in our diary, you know, that's a do not disturb period. Like, that's your time to improve your well-being. We've had meditation sessions. You know, we've really been encouraging people to get away from screens, to do walks and talks, because it's too easy for us to just sit here for 8 hours a day, you know, getting a little bit Zooms and Teams fatigued. So yeah, similar kind of thing, but definitely not assuming that one size fits all, because it doesn't. You know, like you say, some people are extroverted, introverted, want to dive right in. Others will look from afar and do it in their own time. So yeah, and again, the surveys really help with that, 'cause you can never assume what people want. Like you say, colleague-led is definitely the way forward.
I think we'll come back to that topic around testing into what works. Loads of great comments in there. I really like the bit around happy employees means more loyal from Erin, and then the first aider training pieces, and then testing. Reece, I'd love to bring you into this conversation as well. So following you guys a lot on what you guys do for employees feels amazing. You guys are somewhat more established than some of our startups, 2,000 employees, been around a long time. Why is it so important to Softcat? And maybe I can introduce a point that Brian, you mentioned around leaders. What does the role of leadership play in that as well?
Yeah, I think for me, it's culture. I think for even when you put the Google slides up there, you know, they're famous for having a wonderful culture, and Erin and Brian and Gabrielle, they all kind of talked about the last 12 months has sharpened our focus on mental well-being. I think a lot of us doing similar sort of bits and pieces, love some of the little twists and turns, listening to the other people then. But you know, our MD's got a famous saying about culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think that is the epitome of everything. You create, and there's two reasons. Not only do you think it will drive better operating profit and you'll sell more and all that stuff, it will have a better mental well-being for the people that are in there. But obviously, there's quite a big threat, for especially organisations like ourselves, because we've hired 400 new starts in the last 12 months. A lot of grad-based organisations into a new world where, let's be honest, there's no one that's been there that can go, don't worry, I can tell you what to do. I've been through this. And we're a technology company, and even we didn't have a clue what we're doing. You know, we muddled through technology and trying to advise hundreds and thousands of customers on this sort of stuff. But yeah, there's a fear of, if we can't provide this stuff, if you're not showing that you have a good wellbeing initiative, if you're not having volunteering, if you're not doing, you know, mental health work and all the bits and pieces that everyone just talked about there, you actually will struggle to hire people in the next generation. So this is not just about today. There's a big thing, and there's another report that I'll happily share with everyone in the group after. It talks about the decades for culture, and it's culture first decade that we're moving into. And actually, this is becoming a lot more important. If you look at the Deloitte stuff you said then, that mentions the millennials, the dreaded millennials that are going to come in and rip everything up. And I just think that people have refocused on what's more important in work. And we're already starting to see people come in asking about, even though, you know, hybrid working, what is your structure for hybrid working? You know, what are you doing to give people wellbeing hours and stuff like that? What you do to protect our time, which is, I think, new conversations for a lot of people.
Completely that. So actually, I wonder if we should segue into hybrid working, as you just mentioned it there. Because what I really liked about everyone's answers, there's so much honesty going on there. I love to say we didn't have a clue what we were doing. No one had a clue what we were doing, right? In this completely weird world. And it feels like the world started to talk about the last 12 months, but we're not over, right? We're not over. We're now into this new period where we still don't have a clue on how to address stuff. And maybe we can just talk about that new scenario. So working into this hybrid world, so we've got some people who work from home, or probably the majority of people still working from home. Some people now coming to the office. Some organisations actually saying, yes, I want you back in the office. I wonder if any of you would like to share, well, how are you approaching it right now? And what do you think the key challenges are for wellbeing right now?
Sanjay, do you mind if I ask? I'd be really interested to see what other people are doing for their policy. That's something that I think would be really good to find out before we answer that question. So from Softcat, we have always been because of the cultural side of things, and because we have so many, especially grad-based organisations, you've got to be in the office to feel the culture. So there was a huge fear for us. How are we going to maintain this culture when you're effectively faceless in the virtual world?
Yeah.
And we've seen a complete shift from our leadership, gone from, you be in the office all the time to, okay, now we'll let you, I think the communication is be in the office more than you're not, but we're allowing you to be flexible, whether that, Erin talks about caring and supporting people that have to have, parental stuff. But I'd be really interested to see how people have changed that process as well.
Yeah, maybe we can take turns in there. I'll Gabby, do you want to say what you guys are up to?
Yeah, of course. So I think for us, it's been slightly easier because we are a smaller team. So we haven't got so many people who might slip through the net, or we might not be checking in on that well-being. We've always been fairly flexible at Nudge. Even pre-pandemic, I worked from home or visited clients at client sites. So we've always been quite good at keeping people connected. But I think before the pandemic, we almost took for granted that people were just looking after their well-being. I think COVID has really taught us to dive deeper and look behind the assumptions, making sure that we're taking the time to understand each individual's needs. I think it's really opened up new doors for people going, actually, I work better this way. I work better 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. And before that just wasn't something that most organisations had considered. Like you say, Reece, you were thinking, crikey, like what are we going to be doing when we've got all these faceless virtual meetings and stuff? We don't have that luxury anymore of, popping into the kitchen and grabbing a cuppa with somebody. We've got to force ourselves to stay connected. So we've done this in a couple of ways. So we've allowed people to be fully flexible. We've made sure we've kept in touch with people. We implemented a buddy system, actually, which was absolutely amazing at the beginning of the pandemic. Because again, it made people talk to one another who didn't normally talk to each other. It kept us connected, and we're pretty good with our tech at Nudge. Everyone's really good at keeping cameras on. That's another big thing for people, making sure there is a person behind that camera just to give us an idea of what is actually going on. All those daily check-ins, like you say, those Friday afternoon catch-ups, Bryony, they make a huge difference. So I think it's been a little easier for us because people were flexible working before the pandemic, so it's not been such a huge shift in our policy. But I'd be interested in, Bryony, as a scale-up business, was that the same for you, or was that something totally new to your business?
Well, it's really interesting because, Reece, as you said, actually, if the pandemic had not happened, I don't think we would be working from home. We were very used to being in the office together. That's how we worked. That's where we were. And the pandemic showed us, actually, oh, hang on, this doesn't necessarily have to be the way that we work. We're still communicating. We've onboarded 60% of our company in growth remotely, and it's worked. We've got them the tech they need. We've given them the setups. They're onboarding, they're getting to know teams, they're getting to know the company. They still feel like they've embodied a culture. So it's worked. So, I mean, we have one of those very first world problems where we've outgrown our office. We don't fit it. We've got this wonderful office in Hove. We can see the sea. It's really cool. Everyone loves it. So we are ready to pivot and change. But for the moment, what we're thinking is the office is open. We've put risk assessments in place. We have made sure that it's got the tech set up so everyone can just walk in with a laptop, pick a desk. And we want it to become the Tillo collaborative space. If the product team want to go in there with their post-its and slam them up on the whiteboard so they can get feedback face-to-face, that's what it's there for. The finance team are doing some training on a new system. Book the office, be in there. But if I'm doing a day of 10 telephone interviews, probably not needing for me to go and sit and take up a meeting room. I'd be better at home. And we want everyone to find that balance. But I say we're ready to change because it's interesting. I had an interview this week and I asked the candidate, how do you manage stress? And he said, I go to the office, because when I'm at home and I'm alone in something stressful, I don't have anyone to turn to and share and realize it's not a big problem. It's not a big deal. But to call someone about it probably feels a bit overkill. So instead you dwell on it. He said, so you go to the office and suddenly everything seems smaller, and actually it's like problem share, problem halved. So, we want it to be a collaborative space. We want people to feel that it's welcome and available. But you're right, Reece. I don't know if we would have been here if the pandemic hadn't happened. So, take a positive from it. We've learned.
And Erin, let me bring you into this conversation too. So you're also a large organisation, roughly 1,500 employees. how have you been addressing?
Yeah, it's interesting, but probably close to what Reece had said. Really, weren't doing flexible working prior at all, and I guess one of the key differences with us is we have a number of colleagues that we've been able to make remote workers, and huge amounts of effort went into that transition and the technology that underpinned that, and all those good principles that Bryony talked around, let's make remote working work and recognise where there are constraints and how we need to put some infrastructure and support around making that work as best as it ever could. We of course have our branch colleagues though as well, who are face to face with our members, and that's absolutely a core part of the business and the heart of the business. And for us, we needed to be really careful that we recognised our members' needs and the support that they needed, and that interaction with our colleagues that they absolutely rely on, while also balancing that in many parts of the pandemic, particularly in the early stages, it was a really scary place. And for colleagues who were out there, face to face, no matter what environment you're in, that was scary. So we needed to balance those two worlds and make sure that we really listened to colleagues, that we put in place, the right risk assessments, the right protections, but also the support, empathy and compassion that you need around that. In terms of where we go to next in the transition, it's still a work in progress. It's been a very considered and careful approach we're taking, but rightly so for us. It is a huge transition, and transitioning out of that will be huge as well. So we want to make sure that we build back better, and we've had lots of great wins through this, and a lot of people work really well remotely, and we want to capitalise on that. But like the panel have already touched on, we've got colleagues who prefer being in the office. We've got colleagues whose roles are more suited to being in the office. So what we're trying to do is a really considered approach around mapping out where do people need to be, what do different roles need, and how do we set that up so we can build back better so people get that space and the benefit of remote working. But we've got collaborative spaces, we've got places that people can engage and make the most of it. Because wouldn't it be a huge shame if we'd gone through this whole time and we don't take the positives from it and do something a bit different in future.
Thanks, Erin. Actually, it's really nice that you posed this question, Reece, because it's kind of highlighted that hybrids actually has opportunity. It's got opportunity to solve some of the stuff we may have been struggling with and doing well during the remote world. But we often present on employee loneliness, and that seemed to be a really rising trend over the last year, with specifically under 24-year-olds reporting this huge rise in loneliness versus you over 70s. It was just a massive thing. And I think the other thing we noticed was so many more people realizing how many friends they had in the work environment. They didn't really think of as friends, but actually it just filled that gap of colleagues were your friends, and you really realized it in the lockdown space. So giving people the opportunity to have a bit of both and go back probably is more of an opportunity than actually a worry. Is that probably the feeling from all of you guys as well?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I was just going to add to that. I think it's the importance. I think I've just noticed someone said it in there as well. The importance of routine, but enabling people to choose what suits them. So I'm structured and I'm happy at home. However, I think like Bryony said, there's some people that actually, the interview said that they actually like to go in because that's what works for them. And I find it fascinating that all of our companies probably would say we put our people first. That's what we talked about. However, 12 months ago, we would have still said, no, you have to come into work. We wouldn't have trusted them. It sounds weird, not we wouldn't have trusted, but maybe it's because the technology hadn't proved to us that, or we hadn't proved to ourselves that we can still be just as efficient and productive and all that sort of stuff. We've just got to find ways of doing it and in a different way, haven't we? And there's something that we keep talking about internally, like COVID keepers. There are quite a number of COVID keepers that, as we do return to this hybrid working pattern, don't lose the buddy systems, don't lose the mental health, wellbeing hives, and all those great stuff that everyone's started to pop up and think about.
Yeah, I really like that. So just picking up on some of the comments, so I find it very important to have a routine, the one you picked up on there, Reece. Really interesting that. So I popped to a co-working space earlier this week, was completely out of the routine of leaving the house. So I meant to get there at 9 o'clock, didn't get there to 9:45. Really interesting. It's okay. So you have to, maybe that's the downside of hybrid, is it breaks my routine. But I think there's what was wonderful about that is I then met 3 other people from the business who we hadn't seen the week before for the first time in a year, kind of thing, which was lovely. And then someone else commenting, we have a weekly quiz at the beginning of every meeting. We will check how everyone is doing before we kick off the agenda. To your point, Reece, it's keeping those human things that we've kind of been so much more aware of in the last 12 months as we start shifting back to what was normal. So we at OnHand, we try and build in just a chat. There's no agenda, like chat in the first 5 to 10 minutes of meetings before we get going. Doesn't always happen, but it's quite nice when we do it.
You're trying to put in sort of bookends at the start and the end of the day. I think I was even one of these people. I think when you turn to hybrid working, it's like, oh, brilliant, I get to work from home. But then you realise that you're sitting on the computer from 7 o'clock in the morning till probably later. You didn't have a lunch, you didn't go out. And the people that you normally look up to in the organisation, even the leaders, the leadership that you talked about the question before, they're struggling. I think putting this, we hate the commute, whatever it was, to walk or drive or whatever. But I would have given anything to sit in the M25 for 2 hours to just break up that day. But yeah.
I'll move on to maybe a different topic about volunteering and the benefits you guys are seeing from it. But before I do, I think that's a wonderful, it's a wonderful and probably not that talked about topic. It's the balance between work and life. Now you're at home, and someone's mentioned it in the comment section as well. And I wonder, on exactly that point you made there, Reece, around, hey, sitting in your car on the M25 was actually the break from how you separated work from getting back to life. I wonder if any of the panelists would also like to just jump in on, well, how are you doing that now? And actually, are you struggling with it? If you're open to sharing that kind of stuff, and how do you separate work and life right now, being 24/7 at home?
I think that was one of the things I got asked the most at the beginning of the pandemic. So because I'd done work from home before, everyone was like, Gabs, how do you structure your day? Because normally, and naturally in the office, you get up, you make a coffee, you'll pop to Pret or Greg's if you're up north like me, and you'll just naturally have that time away from your desk, won't you? Whereas like Reece says, you're at home, you log on, and you almost feel guilty, like, oh, am I doing enough work because I'm at home? And you feel bad if you take like 10 minutes away. So I've just really driven home, go and put the wash on, go and take the dog out. You would be using that time normally in the office chatting to your friends. It's absolutely okay. And I think for us, that's had to be driven by leaders. It's had to be driven by the SLT and our founders. It's all well and good, people like me saying this to people, but when it comes from someone in senior leadership reiterating that and saying it's okay to do flexible working. I think it was Jed, one of our founders, said, if you are coming into the office and you feel much safer getting the tube at a later time when it's less busy and you want to leave a little bit earlier, that's absolutely okay to do so. And I think having that known by senior leadership and founders, our MD, really helps people to go, okay, you know what, yeah, like we said, they do trust us. It is okay. They know we're doing a good job. I don't have to be chained to my desk 7 till 7 every day. I think leadership definitely plays a huge role in allowing people to make those better choices and feel much more relaxed when they're at home.
Yeah, I would echo that hugely, and for us, that's where our wellbeing principles came from, around that meeting etiquette. One simple thing we said, and it does sound really simple, but I think it's really important, is you don't have to be on a Teams call at all time, and you don't have to have your camera on at all times. It's exhausting if you sit in meetings 9 till 5 every day. It's absolutely exhausting. So if you want to just pick up the phone, pick up the phone. If it's better to use an email, use an email. Like, think about how you do it. Let's not just default straight into this new way of communicating that we have. And we've tried hard for leaders to role model that. So within 1 till 2 is our wellbeing. Our no meetings in that time. It's up to you what you do. And realistically, some people will use that time just to clear emails, but others will do something wellbeing focused, or just do something nice for them. Like, maybe it is just putting the wash on and getting your tea ready for later. But it's important to that person in the day. We've, I guess, to try and spread that message of the importance of work-life balance, we've used the hub for that and tried to incentivise colleagues to share what are they doing. So through Mental Health Awareness Week, as an example, we did a competition where you could win, vouchers for local businesses, and people would share, what are you doing on your wellbeing hour at the day? So you have people, with their kids or out with the dog or making tea for later, and it was lovely because then you get that glimpse into someone's home life, but it also spreads the word that you don't need permission for this. By saying, as an organisation, prioritise yourself. Like you don't need to be sat at your computer 9 to 5, and so I think that was really helpful. The other thing I think people can fall into a trap of is, in a meeting, straight down to business, where you'd never do that in the office, would you? You would have some chat, you would connect with each other in a more social way. So we've tried to really encourage that through communications as well. Don't feel guilty for having the chat, don't feel guilty for even ringing people up just to have a chat. You do that in the office, so don't think just because you're at home you can't do that.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll try and move us on slightly. So, I think there's so many comments there around wellbeing hours, sharing what you're up to in the wellbeing hours, and things like going to the office to solve the stress that you have, which is a really interesting comment. I haven't heard that one before, but I totally see it. It's sharing is like half the stress. Friday catch-ups are trying to solve, that socializing aspect. And that's really what we were trying to talk about today, was the social and community aspects of wellbeing and how you try and solve them. There's lots of things that sound like you're all doing. One of them, of course, is volunteering, which you've all been really great at. I wonder if you can talk a bit about the impacts you've seen, so the impacts and reaction you've seen from employees who have engaged with some of the things you've mentioned, and specifically volunteering as well. Gab, why don't I start with you?
So I think we've seen a bit of an improved work culture when you're all working towards something quite collectively. That's really nice. And I think what OnHand gave us the opportunity at Nudge to do was for people to choose missions, tasks that aligns with their own personal moral values or all that kind of thing. Instead of assuming that we do a group activity to contribute towards one particular charity, people get to choose, do you want to ring up someone and have a chat? So I think that improved overall satisfaction, and again sort of drove that, it's up to you what you do to improve your well-being. Here is all your options. Find something that works for you. A sense of teamwork. I think we're pretty good at Nudge as working together as one big sort of machine that keeps ticking away, because we are a small business. And I think once everyone starts saying, oh, have you done this for OnHand, or what is it? That had a huge impact on people, and the reaction was really positive and well received from everyone.
Thanks, Gabs. Does anyone else want to jump in? And it's wonderful if you talk about OnHand, but also cool if you talk about any other aspects of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we at Tillo sort of came to OnHand after discovering actually the benefit of volunteering. So we got involved with the free school meals last year as a tech product. We were able to find a platform that was able to step in and support the government with the free school meals. And we recognised then, and we'll get onto that later, I suppose, with the sort of, understanding the value of our product and sort of understanding our sort of commercial social responsibility. But we decided to work with a local charity called Chomp, who provide support to vulnerable families across a range of ways, but mainly with food. So it was really early in the pandemic in the summer, and we went to their site and packed boxes of food, and then we delivered them across the local area to families in need that needed them. And just to see, when we even said, look, we're aware that we're deep in a pandemic, do you feel comfortable coming to do it? And we had to turn people away. There were too many of the team that wanted to come and do it. They were desperate to be able to, I think, leave home, get out, help. And we just saw how much value our team got from that kind of endeavour. So that's when we then got in touch with OnHand, and we were able to say, hang on, there's other ways. So for those that maybe didn't feel comfortable going out, going face to face with people just yet, there was another way for them to get the same reward feeling, that feeling of doing good. They were able to get it by doing a phone call. They were able to get it by sort of reaching out to someone. And then we went ahead with Chomp and still did their Christmas hampers still, and delivered those all over Brighton. Our CEO even took his kids along with him. It was just this wonderful moment for everyone as a team to spend some time together, be doing something good while we did it. And yeah, we recognized then quite quickly just how much our team valued that sort of opportunity to volunteer, that, you know, you can throw all the perks in the world. We have an incredible snack wall in the office and it's wonderful, but nothing brought the team together like doing those volunteering opportunities. So it was really clear what our team are asking for, you know, in terms of volunteering opportunities. So we've, seized upon it.
I think it's fabulous, but great stories as well. They're lovely to hear. It's interesting that even when you hear those stories, I think you end up grinning from ear to ear, don't you? And that's what we feel with our colleagues, I guess. You know, a big part of our purpose is around making positive change in communities, and we've done that through volunteering for a long while, but also lots of work in the communities in general around fundraising and supporting charities. And you know, there were certainly constraints on that through the last year in particular, so it was great for us to lean into OnHand and to start partnering with OnHand, because it opened things up. And we've had wonderful examples from colleagues around the feedback they've had through their missions and the people they help. And you know, we had one colleague who was doing gardening and dog walking for a lady, and I mean, it's one of many, but just the word she used to describe him was a guardian angel, and you just think, oh my goodness, you know, sometimes it's difficult to measure the impact that a little bit of help can have in someone's life, but when you hear it like that, it gives you a hint at how much it means for some people. And you know, some of our colleagues have been extraordinary in how many missions they do. It almost looks like it's addictive. You see the numbers they're racking up, and that shows how much they're enjoying it and how much they get from that. And we love seeing that, because we know they're engaged, they're happy, they're going to bring that into the workplace, but also it's really benefiting our community as well, you know, in that wider community. And that's so core to our purpose that it just feels completely win-win. So as an organisation, we've really tried to champion that and spread that positive communication about it. So, you know, one of our most passionate volunteers was recognised in our colleague awards, and she received the CEO Choice Award and special recognition for her community engagement and impact on others and getting other people volunteering, because she was out there talking about it. And even we've got the point now where we promote OnHand with our members, and that's fantastic. It's just like, it's like the benefits don't stop, they're more than mutual, you know. And I guess that's the interesting thing, isn't it, about volunteering and community engagement. It's really a one-off impact, you know. It could lead to a new friendship, new opportunities, or simply just inspire someone else to get involved. But it's certainly win-win for everyone, for everyone that's involved in that. And I guess all of that lovely feeling aside, you know, it would be remiss not to mention that it has a huge impact on a business commercially too. So if your people are thriving, your performance and your business will too. And I think we see that every day, because our colleagues get the chance through OnHand and in our various community programs to impact on our communities. And it's lovely, that's great to see, but it's also helpful to know that it's building our business even stronger.
Thanks, Erin. Really appreciate that. Reece, sorry, look like you were about to.
Not unless you've got
No.
to move on.
No. It's I've got an eye on the time. Go on.
I was just going to add to what sort of Erin and everyone just talked about then. And this is a real personal thing, but I went into volunteering. So Softcat launched our volunteering 2 days per year, probably 4 years ago. We've always given tons of money to charity, yeah. So it weighed hugely on that side. And then I was given the challenge by some leadership course internally. Really honestly, never even thought about doing volunteering. Can you try and kickstart our thing? And I was only one of a few, so can't definitely take all the credit. But we launched this program about 3 years ago. So then that went up 400%, and we've done things like volunteering to India to set up a foundation school and all some amazing stuff before COVID. My point is, and lead on to how we got onto OnHand, is and we've talked about with Wellbeing and hybrid working, you have to provide options to people, but you've also got to appreciate that not everyone will feel comfortable or wants to give back in volunteering. So we then went to OnHand because we tried to do what OnHand does on our own for 12 months previously, and probably same as every other company on here. Okay, team, we're all doing this as a secondary to our current roles. It's bloody hard work, but people needed it more because you're trying to make people go, not only is it good to do good, you will feel amazing. And that's the bit that I don't think people realise. And for me, I'm now one of those people that will chew people's ear off, which is terribly annoying, because I'm like, go on, give volunteering. Yeah, it's great to make that other people, but you'll feel really good, which I just think is a really important thing.
Thanks, Reece. Well, thanks to all of you. It's a really nice comments, and honestly, I didn't say that, but for people that are listening, I didn't say that before the call. So thank you very much for all of that. And I'm just picking up on some of the comments as well coming in. So we will do Q&A pretty soon, so do start thinking about questions if you're listening in. But some of the comments, I have a weekly chat with a guy called Ernie in London. We're now friends. I think one of the panelists mentioned how those kind of friendships build out, which is lovely to see. I really look forward to our catch-ups. I feel like I've known him all my life. That's wonderful to read. Another comment, talking to lonely elderly people, it's humbling to know how much of a difference you make to their day. Also share your experience.
It's emotional. Sanjay, you don't warn enough people how emotional that is.
It is, yeah.
I was in tears after the first one. Lady from Newcastle, she literally had me in tears. And I thought it was meant to be the other way around. She made my day.
I'm not supposed to make them cry, Reece.
She made me cry.
You can count on it, Jordan, to do that in the
Love it. Yeah, well, loads of wonderful short stories to share. Maybe we should have another session just on the stories. Thanks everyone on the panel. I can see on the chat we're starting to share everyone's LinkedIn, so please do link in if you're listening in and you want to chat with anyone who's on the panel. I'm sure everyone is delighted to link up with you and take any questions further. Before we go on to Q&A, maybe one last question for everyone on the panel. So we've seen this increasing attention on profit with purpose, responsible capitalism. I think the scene setting at the start kind of, like, without doubt shows you why. So maybe I'll avoid the question of why do you think that's happening. It's just clearly a massive trend that everyone sees the obvious benefits of. However, it's not that easy for everyone to start having purpose with profit. So maybe there's a question that I can pose to all the panelists. And it's around, if you're one of the people listening in and your company's just starting this journey or thinking about how to get onto the journey of having purpose, introducing that for both its consumers and its employees, what's the one tip you would share with people listening in? Erin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm probably in a privileged position around the ethos of our organisation, that it is really community minded, because I think that naturally gets leaders involved in wanting to do that and making it purpose led. I guess I think it has a huge amount of impact in multiple ways. So whether that's on, your colleague engagement, your turnover rates, your loyalty from colleagues, and if that's the drivers for your organisation, perhaps that's how you need to frame that business case. But remember, it will hit the bottom line as well. All of that leads to good productivity, it leads to great performance and a high performing culture, and a culture that people want to come join. And that is huge for profitability too. So I think it's about understanding for people what are the drivers of that organisation, and based on that, helping explain that aligning people clearly to your purpose and doing that through everything that you do in that organisation, you're going to have great impact in multiple ways, but making sure it makes sense for the people in your organisation that need to back it.
Thanks, Erin. Gabs, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, of course. So I think, society's moved on. People are realising and becoming much more aware of all these different societal and economic and environmental changes that happen. And that then means that organisations have got to be conscious. They've got to show they care. They've got to show that they want to have a positive impact on the world. People are moving away from companies just because they offer great pay. They want to work for a brand that, like Erin said, aligns with their values. So it's important that a business knows, what are your values? Live them with the most integrity that you can. Be authentic as well, don't just box tick. And I think when you have all of these things, you find a balance. You create a team of like-minded people who work there, who support your values because their values align. And then that helps create that sense of purpose. And I think also it's important to create a safe space for employees to share their thoughts and ideas about the business. I mentioned at the beginning of the call, you know, colleague-led is the way forward. Without your employees, you are essentially nothing in the nicest way possible. They are what drives your business. They are what keeps things ticking over. Keep them happy, listen to them. They know the business inside and out, you know, and that will really, really, really show and make people feel like they have got a purpose in their work.
Thanks, Gabs. Reece, do you want to jump in?
I want to get from you. Mine's more of an aspect for some of the people. I think that everything Gabs and Erin have just said there about the cultural benefits of the people. For me, I think you're talking to two types of people when sort of volunteering. The ones that will do it naturally, just so kind-hearted, willing to go and do it. And then there's the ones that say they're going to go and do it and probably won't, because they're actually quite scared. And I was one of those individuals. So internally now, I'm trying to speak to those people and just say, give it a go, you'll be surprised. You know, feel comfortable being outside your comfort zone, if that makes sense. So regardless of whether this is through OnHand, through your own volunteering scheme or whatever it is, that's kind of what we're really trying to focus on now. It's kind of catch, even if you can catch 5 more people of that audience that maybe a little bit too fearful to go and do stuff, then yeah, that would be my advice.
Nice, thank you. And Byron, do you want to end us off?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, Tillo, in a way, last year, were given this opportunity to see the purpose that our product could have. We were able to step in and facilitate free school meals for millions of vulnerable families across the UK. But if you're in another company, you're not always going to have that opportunity to be like, oh, look how our product can swivel and work for like corporate social responsibility. This is great. So if you're at another company, I think it's just about considering it in all aspects. It's in recruitment. If I'm interviewing someone and I talk to them about the things that we do at Tillo, we do OnHand, we volunteer, we work with charities. If they're engaged with it, if they go, wow, that's great. I know I've found someone that I would like to bring into the company. It's about our managers not just going, yeah, I support it, but doing it and showing it. And, you know, so it's those aspects. Yes, you're not always going to naturally have an opportunity land in your company's lap that shows just what purpose you can have in your community. You have to go after it everywhere, you know. And Reece is right, you know, you are going to have people that, you know, when we were joined OnHand, we were the first, I think, to join you guys in Brighton. So our missions were very much telephone based and people were scared. They were scared to pick up the phone. They didn't want to be like Reece getting upset and being like, what have I done? But, you know, things are growing and we're starting to show people just the different options that are there. So, you know, it's just about keeping your eyes open as leaders for these opportunities and seizing them and providing as many opportunities as you can.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I think with that then, we can move to Q&A. My mouse has decided to die in this in this webinar time, so I can't actually click on the Q&A button. Kaz, I wonder if you're still on the line from the OnHand team and can probably just take us through what questions have come in.
Absolutely, sure. So we've got one just talking about what would be the key change you've had in your wellbeing policy since COVID-19 started last year? And will those changes still be in place as you roll through the next 6 months or so?
I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Erin.
It's probably not policy driven, so I hope I still answer the question, but and I think it's key, it's not policy driven. What last year showed us was this lovely strategy and plans we had for all 2020 needed to be thrown out the window. It wasn't going to work. And, you know, we had to adapt to what our colleagues need, what are they saying they need, what's happening in the wider society that could be impacting on colleagues or our communities outside of work, and how do we best support people there. And it was a real eye-opener for us that when you incorporate that agility and you flex and you do what's right for that moment in time for your colleagues, that's where people really feel the benefit of it. So I think that's our commitment. We still, you know, we have a plan for the rest of 2021, but we've kept it really high level and more about, look, we're going to cover these different aspects of wellbeing this year, but we've got scope to build in additional things and also flex depending on what that feedback comes through from colleagues ahead of those times. And that would be my tip to anyone around what you keep a hold of, is keep agility and keep an open mind so you can be truly colleague-led.
Can I tack on to that question? Maybe answering a different question. So keeping the agility is a really interesting one for me, and it's it's I think it comes back to lots of things the panelists said earlier in the session around testing into what works and what doesn't in this scenario where we have no idea what's going to work and what's not going to work. Can I tack on a question there? Like, how do you guys figure out what's working, what's not working, when to change? I can't remember if it was Gabby or Barney that mentioned it right at the start around testing different things. What's your approach been like and how have you changed it?
From sort of Nudge's perspective, we in our quarterly meeting, as part of that, we always get surveyed and we ask, you know, how happy you are, what could be improved, and we do that regularly. You know, every 3 months, that is something, because if this past 12 months has taught us anything, that so much can happen even in the space of a month. So you've got to keep on top of things. If something's not working, you know, change it and really listen. Even if as leaders you thought this is going to be a brilliant idea, this is really going to work for the business, if you're then getting feedback and it's not working, don't be blindsided by, you know, just because we thought this was going to be good. You know, as Erin said, you've got to adapt, keep that open mind. It's taught us that each individual really is just that, an individual. Everyone's needs are going to be different. And then, you know, as an employee, be honest, because we need to hear back from you. We need to hear what's going well, what's not going well. And I think, you know, having that regular communication and having those safe spaces, regular meetings, really helps open up those conversations.
Thanks, Gav.
Same here. It's just ask the people, isn't it? You know, if you've got the relationships and you can trust them and they feel that they can safely give an answer. You know, we were doing pub quizzes for over a year. Every Friday, there I was with my pub quiz ready. And they started to lose people. And I got it. You know, it's hard. People assumed to start with they were going to do a few months and then they'd be back in the office. And it didn't happen. So things changed. And, you know, it was about saying, well, what could replace it? I'm not just going to lose it altogether. What else should we be doing? What else is going to replace that to provide the same engagement? And, you know, we mixed it up and did, you know, exercise classes. We hired a personal trainer to do a session with us all at home. You know, it was just about not being, and me and our people assistant mentioned this, not feeling almost hurt if people didn't come along, and actually putting that aside and being like, it's not about me. It is about what do the team want now? You know, we are wider than just the people team and our ideas. You know, we are made up of the people that are going to be coming along and what they want from us.
Thanks, Barney.
I was just going to add, I think, you know, we've touched on the diversity of colleagues quite a lot and the different needs they have. And I think when you're thinking about return on investment, it's dead easy to fall into the trap of saying, how many people attended this? What does that mean? Is it successful? But sometimes it isn't about that. You know, you might only have one person read a particular thing you've done or come along or something, but actually the impact on them and their well-being or their family's well-being could completely outweigh having 40 people attend a webinar, you know, and just because it isn't right for someone at that point in time, if you're committed to, you know, creating central resources that people can go back to, people can dip back into it at a later date when it is right for them, and it can be impactful for the longer term too.
Yeah, definitely, Erin. I think having that available toolkit, whatever that looks like for your individual business needs, as long as it's available, you know, in like a central hub or a wellbeing hive or whatever people use, for people to access when it's right for them, that's key, definitely, having something in place all the time.
Right. So thanks, everyone. I'll just read out one more comment, which is, your pub quizzes are awesome, Bryony.
Thanks.
I think that's from someone from Tillo. And as we run out of time, thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully this has inspired you on your journey on Purpose with Profit, or given you something you can use in your businesses. I kind of add, if you're listening from one of our partners, get going. If you're not started already, get going. We've released a whole bunch of new features now where you can literally get going in 30 seconds. You don't need to do a DBS check for the vast majority of tasks right now. So you could do a food drop to a food bank, you could do a beach cleanup, you could do a youth mentoring session, none of which requires all of the extra checks we had to do. You can literally sign up for those in 30 seconds. And if you're an organisation listening who isn't one of our current partners, well, hopefully this inspires you to take some action too. So with that, thanks everyone for listening in. Thanks to all of our panelists, you've been amazing. Thanks very much, and see you next time.